Hello and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Photoshop by Eduonics. In this lecture we're going to be going more into the concept of masking, talking about adjustment layers. We've talked about it a little bit before, but I wanted to go more into the other options, and I wanted to go into some kind of just look at masks from a different angle. And so right now we have this picture. I'm going to hit F7 to bring up my layers, and so let's take a look at adjustment layers, and we did in a previous video, but in this one I'm going to focus on it specifically and go a little bit deeper into non-destructive editing as a whole. Just to give you a quick example, in case I forgot to in the previous videos, anything that you do in image adjustments can be done with a mask or an accompanying layer. And the advantage of this is, if I do an image adjustment, hue saturation for example, I'm adjusting the image, and as soon as I click OK, it becomes permanent part of the image. Of course I can undo and go back in my history, but that's impractical. That's linear editing, and it's kind of the old way of doing things. Because if I want to change this at any time down the road, I can't. If I've done 10 more things, if my history states only go back to 10, by default I think they're set to 20. You don't get unlimited like in Illustrator. Regardless, even if you did, it's impractical because you'd have to go back and undo all the changes just to undo this one little thing. And now there are a number of things you can do as opposed to using a mask or using an adjustment layer. But once you start using them, you'll understand how cool they are. Like for instance, I could just copy this and I could paste it. Sometimes it doesn't want to copy. I could paste it in a new layer and I could do my adjustment. And that would end up creating an enormous Photoshop file. So instead of doing that, instead of using the permanent adjustments, although they are useful if you're doing quick edits and if it's something that it's not that important, or you're just increasing the contrast to something. So to create an adjustment layer, it's just like a layer mask, and of course we did go into it in the previous video. Just go down here and click New Filler Adjustment Layer, and we'll go with some that we haven't done. Posterize is a good one. Posterize breaks it up into a certain amount of colors based on what you have selected and levels. So right now it's posterizing everything that's underneath it. I'm going to add an image to this in the foreground between layer 0 and our adjustment layer posterize. Okay, now I added an image of Pat, or Carrot, whatever you want to call it. It's an animal I found when I was snowshoeing. But as you can see now, I've grouped my posterize layer in its own thing, and you don't need to do that. Let's just keep it like it was. So previously it was just this layer and this layer, and I wanted to add this in between them. And you can see when I put that under the posterize layer that not only is it still posterizing or adjusting whatever adjustment you're using, this layer, the one that was previously below it, is now 2 layers below it. It's also doing the cat parrot. So anything that's under the adjustment layer, it'll do. Now if you only want it to affect one thing, then you're going to want to select your adjustment layer and whatever you want it to adjust. In this case, if I'm just doing the background, I'll drag it down to the background, and in the properties dialog, you'll see this little icon down here, and if I click it, it'll clip just to the layer of the plants, whereas if I add this, it doesn't do anything to the cat parrot thing layer. So right now it's just attached to this. If I move this in between, it's going to drop this down. You can see this little arrow is dropping the effect down to the previous layer, and by putting something in between it, it gains that it passes it on again. So when you clip something, you generally want to group it. I like to, and you can still put things above and below it. So right here we would maybe title it adjustment layer. Background. I like to use abbreviations so you can read the whole thing. But let's just go into some of these other things that you can do in the properties dialog when it comes to adjustments. Of course, you can toggle layer visibility. You can also do that in the layers panel. You can reset to adjustment defaults, and what this will do is, whatever it came in at, which I believe is 4 levels, it'll set it back to 4 levels. And this is good if your adjustment defaults are typically set to something that's that you can remember, that looks good, or if you just work good with making your adjustments based on the median that it gives you. So you can reset, and of course all these actions are undoable. And there's this state, which is press to view previous state. So it's kind of like undoing. Now if I go back to previous state, and it's hard to tell, let's go to something like, let's start out at 2, and let's go to previous state, which is what was before that. Now when I let go of it, it goes back to 2. So it's something you can just hold in, and it's also the / I think, or / key. So there's a shortcut that you can do to compare, but a lot of people like to use undo Control Z, because when you just press Control Z, it goes back and forth, so either one. So that explains all of these things, and this of course deletes the adjustment layer, which can also be done right here because it is a layer and it has the same kind of properties as a layer. And as you can see, I linked this layer and it doesn't do anything. So when you can select the linked layers and unlink them, just in case you're wondering what that was, I was experimenting with it. And linking it doesn't do anything. But so if you want that adjustment layer to just do one thing, which is going to be very common, you're going to want to click this little icon right here. Now, another thing you can do with adjustment layers and in general, as well as clipping masks, is the density. And also, if I click the actual adjustment itself, which you can choose which one you want to edit here, then it'll give me the properties. Of course, this is a mask, and I can make the adjustment just like I would a layer mask. Now, an adjustment has everything that a layer mask has. I'm just going to move that image. An adjustment has everything a layer mask has. It only it just has that additional adjustment with it, which you'll see in the properties dialog. Now, when adjusting density doesn't do anything until we have some black or white in here. And as you remember from the layer mask video, so anything that's black over here is going to not be affected by the adjustment mask. Anything that's white is going to be affected. So although I used a brush right there, you can do a number of things, like just taking this sky out, or maybe I would spend a little bit more time on it, but doing the ground behind the trees. As a selection, then filling that in, or rather, filling the inverse Control-Shift-I in, which looks terrible, but that's how you can control what is actually getting adjusted. As you can see in the little layer preview, you have black and white, and you know from that whatever's under it linked to this arrow from pressing this button is going to have the adjustment on the white, and the black is going to be unaffected. And of course, we can change the opacity 52%, and we can actually have the adjustment layer partially posterizing this. There we go. So you can blend in very easily. And it starts to look a lot less crappy. And so to go back into this, density now is going to have an effect, and you can see it over there. Basically, if you go to density of 1, your black of 100% is going to be like a black of 1%, and 50, it's going to make it 50%. So let's just look at these other ones. And feathers is great that it has this in there, because you can blur your edges, but just blurring the edges of the mask, it smooths everything out a lot. So right now I have this like crazy dramatic light effect going on. You can't tell I have an 81 pixel feathered mask. So instead of, especially if you're using your mouse, it's very useful. Mask edge, color range, and invert, these are all selection commands, as well as load selection from masks. And all of these can be learned through watching the selection tutorial videos for Photoshop previous in this Photoshop series. So go back and take a look at those. Those go really well with this. When you combine selections with adjustment layers and layer masks, you can do just about any kind of non-destructive editing. And just to show you what I mean by non-destructive, of course, you can just deselect this, and the whole thing, the mask, the adjustment, and everything goes away. So now I'm left with my original layer. And of course, you can also add adjustment layers. You can add continuous clipping to layers. You can make whichever ones you want invisible. So there you have it. That's adjustment layers, the concept in layer masks and non-destructive editing. So watch the selection videos and watch these adjustment layers videos, and then watch the individual adjustments in the image editing. Watch the individual effects that you can do, and to really get an idea of how to edit individual photos and with Photoshop. And this is all photo manipulation kind of stuff. So thanks for watching, and practice all the videos.